In an ideal world, the trust deed is going to spell out which test for capacity should be applied. But losing capacity wasn't at the forefront of everyone's minds 30 or 40 years ago. Settlors might have been encouraged to appoint as protector a family friend or a close colleague or someone they trust at the very moment when you need a protector to really be the watchdog. They themselves are at risk of losing capacity.
The administration of the trust can essentially grind to a halt. Decisions can't be taken, distributions can't be made.
There's a bit of a debate at the moment about whether a protector's powers are wide or narrow. Wide is where the decision maker is effectively making the same decision again as the individual whose power they are supposed to be supervising. The narrow version is where the supervisory fiduciary is simply deciding whether or not the decision maker made a decision that was within the ambit of their powers.
At the moment, the winning view is the narrower role, following a Bermuda case.
In a decision by some extremely senior and well-respected judges by the Bermuda Court of Appeal.
A lot of these structures were put in place a long time ago. They have not necessarily been changed since then. They may not be essentially fit for purpose now. And sadly, we might have reached a point where it's too late to make any changes to those structures because you need the consent of the very person who has the capacity issue. Where you haven't got those provisions and you've got a key power holder who cannot be contacted and trust decisions that need to be made, of course the only option then is to seek directions from a local court.
These routes are time-consuming, they are usually quite expensive, and there usually has to be some pretty good evidence to persuade the court that they should get involved.
The Mental Capacity Act means that the Court of Protection does have jurisdiction over P, a person who's in the UK. It allows the Court of Protection to be able to make decisions on behalf of P. My personal experience is that the Court of Protection doesn't much like dealing with trusts, and so the way through that I found has been to engage a chancery barrister who is ready and willing to really explain all of the trust background and get the Court of Protection really comfortable, because of course the Court of Protection, their jurisdiction is bound by the Mental Capacity Act, so this is kind of stretching into a jurisdiction that's a little bit more complex.
There are steps that can be taken when a trust is first set up to try and avoid issues with capacity or vulnerability in the future.
When we're having discussions around drafting with younger settlors, they are generally very happy to engage in those discussions about, well, what happens if you lose capacity? What happens if your power holder, your protector, loses capacity? What happens if a beneficiary loses capacity? One really positive change that we're seeing is an increased use of the idea of a protector committee. It reduces all of the risks around protectors and capacity. Once you've got the idea of a protector committee, you can start to apply some better governance rules to it. You can start introducing agreements of decisions by majority, but also ideas like serving a term, normalising the idea that maybe it's better that it's a person on a rolling term rather than someone who's in place for life.